Hey guys, long time no see. I know you're probably anxiously waiting for Samsung to reveal the Note 10, but what if you're not into the S Pen? Well, in that case, the Galaxy S10 Plus might be a better fit for you. I've been using it as my daily driver for a long time now, and these are my thoughts on what it's like to live with it day in and day out. I'm Vlad for GSM Arena, back to bring you our long-term review of the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus. It's clearly a looker, this one, turning heads left and right, even if Samsung hasn't gone all in with the gradient back finish craze. The rear camera island is, well, huge, but it does prevent the phone from wobbling and slipping off couches by itself. Handling is easier than the screen size may suggest. I had no issues using this with one hand. Then again, my hands aren't particularly small. The S10 Plus is surprisingly less slippery than you'd expect, and that really helps with handling. The white version I have here shows almost no fingerprints on the back at all, even after extended periods of use, which is really refreshing to see. Build quality is flawless, as it should be, and the phone has held up very well, with no signs of wear and tear, even if I have been using it without a case. The Bixby key is still here, but because you can remap a short press to a different application or action, I wouldn't call it the worst button on a Samsung flagship anymore. No, that honor goes to the power key, which for some reason is placed way too high on the right side. If you're right-handed, it's never quite within the reach of your thumb while you normally hold the device. So get ready for finger gymnastics if you use this button a lot. Unlike last year, you won't have any issues telling this phone apart from its predecessor because of the trimmed top and bottom bezels. The punch hole cutout for the selfie cameras is controversial if, like me, you're a fan of symmetry, because it pushes the right side of the status bar off to the center. For years, I've instinctively looked at the top right side of a display in order to quickly check on the connections and battery percentage, but on the S10 Plus, those aren't quite there. Just a little bit off, to the left. Since hiding the "don't call it a notch" in software results in wasted screen real estate, you probably won't ever be able to unsee the cutout, but you might get more used to it in time than I have. And you can even fully embrace it. There are plenty of wallpapers now that do clever things with it, and even apps that show you useful information around it, like your remaining battery percentage, for example. The AMOLED panel is one of the best ever put in any smartphone, and yet to fully take advantage of all of its pixels, you need to dive into settings and up the resolution from the default, that is 1080p+, because Samsung is prioritizing marginal battery life gains and betting that most people won't be able to tell the difference in pixel density. But if that's the case, then why fit the phone with such a high-res screen in the first place? Just for the spec sheet bragging rights? I like the simplified screen mode settings, as there's just two options now. One for punchy colors and the other for accuracy. Much better than the confusing multiple items on past Galaxy flagships. The curves have me torn though, because while I really dig the looks, I'm also constantly annoyed by the two biggest downsides they entail: glare depending on how light hits the screen, and accidental touches triggered by the hand I'm holding the phone with. If you're like me, a case is a must because that alleviates the accidental touches issues at least somewhat. Even so, I still feel like I need to be extra careful how I hold this device compared to flat-screened ones, but that's a price I'm willing to pay for what is still a pretty futuristic look. Unlike other phones, the S10 Plus uses an ultrasonic in-display fingerprint sensor. Theoretically, this should be superior to the optical ones out there. It's more secure and less prone to errors when your fingers are wet, and it doesn't need to shine a bright light onto your finger when unlocking. In use, I did find it more accurate and more reliable, especially once I enrolled the same finger multiple times from different angles. But it is slower than the most recent optical sensors, and it's even slower than the fastest optical sensors from last year, not to mention the traditional capacitive model in the S9 Plus. This is the case even after a few updates, so I'm not sure if Samsung will be able to fix this some more in software in the future. One UI is a breath of fresh air compared to the Samsung experience and TouchWiz of days past. The cartoony look is fully gone, and there's a system-wide dark theme that you can even schedule. Although it is confusingly called night mode, which is what some other companies are calling their blue light filter. The UI polish has not come at the expense of removing features. In fact, there's still seemingly an option for everything you might be able to think of, and a lot of things you wouldn't. Inevitably, some gimmicks have slipped through, like the security scanning software that you have zero need for unless you install apps from shady places. Gesture navigation is an option I turned on right from the start because it feels oh so antiquated to live with a 3-button navigation bar these days. Samsung's system works, but it's not perfect. The back gesture fails to trigger around 1 in 20 times, though it vibrates as if it did, while the animation that brings up the recents menu is janky every single time. Samsung's new skin places actionable items in the bottom half of the UI, and that makes it much easier to operate large phones like the S10 Plus. Unfortunately, this is only valid for the settings and Samsung's own apps, as Google and third-party app makers have their own design languages. Samsung's duplicate apps, including its own app store, are something I gradually got used to living with over the past few years, but people who are new to the brand might find them disorienting. One UI looks good, but its main problem is speed. Samsung fixed the trademark lag of its interfaces last year, and that hasn't returned. But operating the S10 Plus feels slower than it should, considering the hardware inside. There aren't very many stutters, it's just that the whole UI is slower than the current champs in this regard. I'm thinking of Oxygen OS, Google's Pixel Experience out of the box, and even MIUI. I already received a few updates, and Samsung has a monthly cadence to these, delivering security patches and bug fixes, so all's good on this front so far. How long it will take to bring Android Q to the S10 Plus is an entirely different question, of course, considering the company's track record. The camera on the S10 Plus is definitely among the best in the business. Images captured by smartphone cameras aren't generally 100% true to life anyway, so in the end, it all comes down to you deciding how much enhancement and sharpening you like in your photos. The S10 Plus delivers the slightest amount of over-sharpening, along with punchier colors than your eyes can see, especially when it comes to the sky, bodies of water, and greenery. While that results in a look that isn't necessarily accurate, the shots do come out great. The ultra-wide-angle cam is welcome for fitting more into your shot, but do expect shapes to get distorted around the edges. Samsung definitely took its sweet time coming up with its own manually selectable night mode, but it is here now and it went straight to the podium, joining Huawei's and Google's. Which you prefer comes down to your specific needs, but all three are incredibly good. Battery life has been great. I easily achieved 5 to 6 hours of screen on time every single day I started off with a full battery. My use case involves mostly Wi-Fi connectivity, Bluetooth always on and connected to a smartwatch, a couple of hours or so of music streaming, around half an hour of GPS navigation, and about 1 or 2 hours on mobile data. Obviously, if your usage is different, then the numbers will change. Charging is fast, but not really the fastest around anymore. Even mid-rangers are starting to pack faster charging systems than the S10 Plus. This is not the perfect smartphone for everyone, but it very well could be the best smartphone for most people. It's premium through and through, which is great because it's priced accordingly. Its cameras are top-notch, the screen is among the best out there, build quality is great, handling too, battery life is good, and hey, it even has a headphone jack. The speakers are quite impressive, and you also get some peace of mind from the water and dust resistance. The S10 Plus is jam-packed with features left and right, both hardware and software. It truly is amazing for everyone who likes to be showered with choice, having an option available for seemingly everything. On the other hand, if your main priority in a smartphone is for it to be blazing fast, including when it comes to fingerprint authentication, then the S10 Plus might disappoint. This is why it left me with some mixed feelings, but I think we can all agree that its disadvantages are heavily outweighed by its advantages. It's been fun having this Galaxy S10 Plus as a daily driver, and with possible price cuts hitting once the Note 10 drops, it might actually become a more affordable option in the near future. Well, that's been it for this long-term review. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys around.